Let's see what they're saying about Fallout London, which, according to recent news, might actually become more of a documentary game than a fictional game in due time before we know it. So let's see what they've got here. Hold on, it's muted. I'm a professional streamer. Here we go. Okay.
For us, we did this for the fans. We don't have ulterior motives. We wanted to do something that was fun, and we've made something that's fun, and people have found it fun. So for us, we've achieved that goal. So we're very happy about it and the reception.
Fallout London's great. I still haven't quite finished it because I'm working on a couple of other things behind the scenes, but it's very good. It's very good. And it seems like everybody who's played it has been left with the impression that this should be a wee bit of a wake-up call for Bethesda Game Studios, because a team of modders doing this for fun have produced something that is wildly impressive. Just shockingly impressive. And it's free. It's free. And that, I mean, part of it is that it makes Bethesda look like they're not even trying, because this team of this team of people who are not employed by Bethesda, they put this together, granted over the course of a few years, but they put it together and have really blown people away with how impressive it is. And they're not doing it with any like big support from Microsoft. They're not doing it with any extra polishing or anything. Like, they're just coming in here and killing it. And it's very, very, very impressive. And it also, I think for me, reveals just how silly the whole concept of like paid mods is with the Creation Club. Because if anything ever justified $5, $10, hell, even $20 for this paid mod, it's this. This deserves that. The team deserves that. But have you seen Bethesda come in and like help them? No. People are saying, oh, and I've pointed this out too, it's really weird that Bethesda Game Studios hasn't even acknowledged this on their social media. They haven't even tweeted out and been like, good job on that, guys. And some people have countered and been like, oh, it's because if they do that, their lawyers will then have to attack them for this. Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily. They could send them a cease and desist and just say, hey, you can't call it Fallout London. Maybe call it the Fall of London or something like that. Problem solved. It's the word Fallout that's the problem. They haven't enforced legal action against other mods that have had Fallout in the title, so I don't know why that would start now. But even if there were some sort of legal problem, they could do all sorts of special, I believe, because I looked into it too, and I think, I want to say it's called a variance. That doesn't sound right. But basically they can grant specific usage and licensing of their trademark to some other party just by signing some paperwork. So basically, if Bethesda really wanted to, they could go to the Fallout London guys and then sign some paperwork to say, we give you permission to use the Fallout name, and then they could bring it on to the Creation Club. They could offer it for $10, distribute it officially there, be like, hey, we're only going to take 10% instead of our normal 50% or whatever they take on the Creation Club. We're going to do it like that. There's so many ways they could have done this in a way that would be mutually beneficial, but instead they're just not talking about it, which is freaking weird. I know there's people that are coping every which way, being like, well, they just can't talk about it because of the trademark. And I'm like, even if that's why they're not talking about it, they could do things to bypass that and still help the Fallout London crew. Instead, they're just being quiet, which again is just kind of weird. So anyway, this is an interview with the guy, with the head of the Fallout London project with BBC News, and they're going to chat about what's next for it.
Talking to Dean Carter, the project lead on Fallout London. Dean, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Are you all good yourself?
I'm not too bad, not too bad. I've been looking forward to speaking to you because last time we spoke, it wasn't under quite so happy circumstances. But
no, it was not.
No, which I'm sure we'll touch on later. But this time, we should definitely start on a happy note, and that is that Fallout London has finally been released. How are you feeling about that?
It feels like I'm free. No, it's been great to get it across the line at last. Obviously, as you mentioned, there were some hiccups. But yeah, it's out. It seems to be very well received at the moment. And yeah, it's a huge weight off our shoulders. Yeah, very happy about it at the moment, yeah.
I'm sure after years of working on something like this, it's got to be so freeing to release it, and it's well received. I mean, I know for me, when we work on big videos for ages, like the Starfield critique, to finally get it out the door is relieving. But then also, if people like it, it's just an amazing feeling. Jimothy says in chat, I want a British accent. I knew somebody, I believe his name was Jacob would know in chat. I think it was Quinn, I want to say. in high school. He was a few grades below me. I don't know whatever happened to him, but he had a British accent. And we're like, that's very interesting. How did he get a British accent? Because like we live in Colorado, and his parents, we met his parents. His parents were like practicing Jews from like downtown Denver, if I remember right. Like they were not British. So one day at lunch, I just asked him, I was like, so, I mean, you have a British accent, man. Like, why do you have a British accent? Like, I was just curious. Like, your family isn't British. Why do you have a British accent? And he just said, oh, when I was like 9, I was just interested in British culture. And so I just decided to start practicing, and now I can't shake it. Fair enough. Fair enough. When he was 9, he just decided he wanted to have a British accent, just started talking with it, and now he has a British accent. I was like, okay, dude. Well, I mean, more power to you. Like, okay, not the answer I was expecting. I was kind of braced for him to be like, oh, well, I was adopted at age 5 or something. And I was like, dude, that's crazy. Yeah, he basically was Stewie Griffin, basically. Very, very smart guy. Very, very nice. Like, just a total sweetheart. A great guy, but it was just so funny that he's just like, yeah, I just decided to start talking with a British accent, and I kept it. It's like in The Office when they tell whatever her name is, played by Kathy Bates, where they're like, oh, I like your Southern accent, because she's got the Southern drawl, and it's a very nice accent. She goes, oh yeah, thank you. I've been working on it since I was a little girl. It's basically, for him, it's the same thing, except it's not like a joke or anything. It's just funny.
Awesome. And definitely do want to talk about how it's all going in terms of the reaction and stuff.
Yes.
But it's probably a good point. Again, there might be people listening or watching who aren't so familiar with the project. Just run us through very briefly how it started and how it got to where it is now.
Okay, so Fallout London is a mod for a previous game, mods being a modification. We've basically built a game on top of another game. Now, this originally started as just a very small idea. It was literally a conversation between me and one of my friends. And this was before COVID sort of hit. And then COVID struck. And then we suddenly all found ourselves, everyone on the team found ourselves basically locked inside for 2 years with nothing to do. So we decided, let's make a game. And this sort of just snowballed from there. We ended up doing a video way back when. It came out around E3, which is a big computer event. And it got more views than basically the original game studio. And that sort of just thrust us into the limelight. So from there, we then just kept developing. And then it's finally led up to now, which is, you know, some people were pegging this as like one of the biggest things for 2024, which is crazy because this is basically just a mod. So it's definitely snowballed, and it's just so weird to be along for this ride.
Yeah, people are hungry for it. People are hungry for good Fallout content, you know? They want more. Spec Ops, thank you for the 10. Very generous. Wouldn't it be diabolical if Phil to hire them under Microsoft to create the next Fallout project because Bethesda's busy? Dude, that would be so funny. It would be so fun. But that's kind of what we've been talking about all this time, is that they could do that. For Phil, that is comparatively very cheap to having Bethesda go and do this whole thing. You could create a dynamic work from home, like fully remote thing, where all these people from all around the world are then contracted to work on this project. And like, hey, yeah, you guys did great with Fallout London. Love it. You guys are going to work on this for a full release. Because this type of thing has...
diabolical of Phil
oh, no, it's reading it.
under Microsoft.
This type of thing has technically sort of happened before. The other example is a game that I also love dearly that I've recommended to many of you when you guys are like, what's a random game you'd recommend that we might not have heard of? And it's a game called The Forgotten City. And The Forgotten City was actually originally a mod from Skyrim. And what they did is it was such a well-received mod, again, for a Bethesda game, that the team kind of split off. And again, it was just 3 people. My understanding is most of the work was done by basically one guy. And they went off and actually built the game outside of Skyrim as its own standalone thing. So it's not outside the realm of possibility for them to get greenlit to make Fallout London into like its own thing, which is very, very possible. And it's been done before by other studios, and the games are well received and the games are really good. So I wouldn't say, never say never with it. Never say never. And again, for Phil, if somehow you ever see this, for the love of God, it is such a layup. You announce that, next year during E3, you announce that during the Game Awards, whatever, it could still be 4 or 5 years away. You could have just signed the paperwork and the ink could be wet on the page and people would still lose their minds and be so excited. Be so excited. I just don't know why they don't do that layup. Maybe they are doing that layup and it's just a matter of time before we find out about it. But again, it would be so easy to just get that home run hit. Like you even saw with PlayStation, they announced that Hideo Kojima returned to whatever they called it, espionage, the espionage genre or whatever. But then, you know, Kojima's like, it's going to be basically a movie, but a game at the same time. Like, I honestly don't think it's going to be what people are expecting. But they announced that in a soundstage. Like, it's so far off, they don't have a single thing to show for it except just talking about it in really vague terms. So they could do the same level of announcement for like an official Fallout London release with a budget and scale of a full game, and people would lose their minds even if there's not much to show for it, and even if it's just, you know, the director of Fallout London and Phil Spencer on stage. Easy money, easy clap.
I'll bet. And you got a few big names on board, and a little surprise. I must just ask quickly, because since last time we spoke, it emerged that you'd got one John Burkow to do some voice work for you. I've got to ask, how did that happen?
Well, so the one advantage from obviously when we last spoke after the delay was we got to just sort of try and go over a couple of things and just sort of like just shore up any edges. And one of the silver linings was that we reached out to John Burkow and was just like, hi, we have this scene where we have a speaker of the house. It's a robot. Would you like to be involved? Can you do this? And there was a bit of to and fro of like, what's a Fallout London? And we explained and we said that we're a volunteer team. Because this is the whole thing, we're all volunteers. So he thought, oh, is this like a business venture? We're like, nope, we are literally just developers who sit around in our pajamas. And he was like, yep, sounds fun, and I'll do it. So, yeah, there you go. So, yeah, he's got a little cameo role in there. And it's, it was very well received. Everyone seems to really like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement in our teams when we found out that was happening. And, yes, I suppose that's a bit of a silver lining of the delay.
Yeah. I don't think he even realized it would be as big as it was. Because, like, as I said, like, we pitched it as the honest truth, which is, like, we're a small team that make no money from this, and it's just a bit of fun. And then he's probably waking up reading about, like, wait, I'm in this? And this is what's weird for us, is that we do have this, like, gravitational pull, despite this just being, like, a little project of, you know, like, for a mod. So the fact...
So he was like a speaker for the House of Commons or something, and then they brought him in. I'm trying to think of, like, in America, if they ever did this, like a Fallout 3 remake or something, you go to the ruins of, you know, the House or the Senate, and then there's like a robo speaker of the House. In the US, I'm trying to think of anybody they could possibly find in American politics that would be received positively enough that it would be worth doing. I don't think there is anybody. Like, we're so freaking polarized over here. It would just be a total train wreck. Like, probably the most memorable or most, like, famous Speaker of the House for the last 40, 50 years is Nancy Pelosi. And I tell you what, if Nancy Pelosi was hired to voice a character in Fallout, I think people would have people would revolt. John Boehner? I don't think people would recognize John Boehner. I don't think they'd even recognize him. Like, what's the other guy? Paul Ryan? He was speaker for a bit. I don't think people would recognize him either. Like, Nancy's the only one that would be recognizable. Yeah, she gets up there and is like, welcome to the House. It's so good to see you all. Like, I don't think people would respond well at all. It would just be a total train wreck.
We've got this gravitational pull, like even talking to yourselves, it's so strange. We just don't think that this guy would be reading about it. Like,
yeah, I can imagine that John Burke, I know certainly the BBC put a bid in to interview him about it. And I'm sure we weren't the only ones. So it is this weird kind of, snowball effect, isn't it? Like you say. But again, points to what an impact the mod seems to have had, you know, and there's so much interest in it. And so, yeah, that was a great little bit of pre-release marketing publicity, John. And then shortly after that, Fallout London actually landed. Just tell us a little bit about the reaction to it.
In terms of how it's come out, obviously we're not going to lie and say that there wasn't some issues with like how difficult the mod is to install and stuff like that. That was unfortunately one of the main reasons why we were having issues for the last delay. If we could get permission from Bethesda to be able to put it on Steam, then we wouldn't have had some of these issues. It would just be like plug and play, you know, you click and go. Now, we did get that from the GOG side, which is like another release platform. So they have been fantastic. But a lot of these issues that we've had have been from the sort of the hard installation, because we have to basically, if for layman's terms, you have to downgrade the game rather than use the current version.
So based on that, I would assume, like he said, we needed approval from Bethesda to do the Steam thing. So I would assume from that they reached out and tried to get approval to do that. And I wonder if he's going to mention, like, did they just ghost them? Did they reply and say, no, we're not going to help with that? I'd be very curious to know. I'm just fascinated by it because, again, it seems like such a layup to celebrate this. Like, such a layup. And yet, they're just pretending like it doesn't exist. It's bizarre.
But in terms of actually going into the game, all the people that have actually played it and gone in and got through, like, we know it's a steep hurdle, but when they've got over that hurdle and played the game, we've had people say that this is like one of the best entries of the series, which we don't know if this is like a honeymoon period. We're assuming it is. We're probably going to get a lot of flack soon when people, like, you know, the rose-tinted goggles have sort of come off. But yeah, people seem to be really enjoying it. And for us, we did this for the fans. You know, as I said, this isn't like we don't have ulterior motives. We wanted to do something that was fun, and we've made something that's fun, and people have found it fun. So for us, we've achieved that goal. So we're very happy about it and the reception.
That's good to hear. And just on the point about the tough install, I guess, have you almost been a victim of your own success there anyway? Because I know there'll be a lot of PC gamers who think nothing of, you know, jumping into consoles and inputting commands and things. But given the interest in this, I would assume you've got a lot of people wanting to play Fallout London who maybe haven't spent so much time in settings menus and what have you as some of us. Has that, do you think, driven some of the problems?
100%.
Yeah.
And we love the fact that we've managed to open this up to so many people, and that's why we've tried to get on as many avenues as we could, so that if your average viewer might not know how to do all this sort of like reversing engineering to try and get Steam to work, there's an option on GOG which is like plug and play, and then people can just click a link that we put out to people, they can go and get it, and it's fine. But yes, 100% we know that was going to be an issue, and that was why we originally did the delay, because we were trying to make it work on the new version. The new version just doesn't work very well, quite frankly. So we...
Yeah, their next gen big update that everybody waited 9 years for. It's garbage. I also do just find it really funny that GOG is owned by CDPR. Bethesda Game Studios openly considers CDPR to be a direct competitor because of like The Witcher competing against Fallout 4 and taking a lot of the accolades away from, with, of course, like Cyberpunk 2077 and all these other games. And so it's just really funny that CDPR with GOG has managed to do more for Fallout London than Bethesda Game Studios actually has, which is just, it's really funny.
We were like, okay, let's revert it back. And we knew that would be another mountain. So to have to go back on our word, to know that we were going back on our word to try and make it work on the old version, and knowing the old version for many people was like a gate of entry, we knew we were stuck between a rock and a hard place, and we've done the best we can. As I said, we're modders at the end of the day. We're not industry professionals. So we only are allowed to do certain amount of things before we start rocking the boat too much, before Bethesda might get a bit upset. So we've done what we can in the parameters that we are allowed to do it in. So yeah.
Yeah, and I know obviously you would have tested the mod as much as you could before you released it, and I think that's always a difficult proposition with PCs anyway, because every PC is different, right? Have any of the bugs, I know there's like a train one, that did they take you by surprise, any of them?
Yeah, so the famous one that's been known is the train crash, which is when you're watching the train crash and then the game will shut down. That's actually due to a graphics card issue on how it reads things in the game. So what we've noticed is that a lot of people these days have like very up-to-date PCs, which is fantastic. But we've built this on an engine that's from 10 years ago that doesn't really play well with some of these things. So people have got these great new PCs that are using all these like modern day films and videos and all that sort of stuff, whereas the game uses old stuff. So it's reading all these like old data and it's just coming through, and some of them are just crashing out, and it's just like, what is this old stuff? It's like you wouldn't expect to put a floppy disk in your current PC. It's not quite that old, but it's like you wouldn't know what to do with it. So we've definitely had these. And I think one thing that people need to realize as well is, again, we're a modding team. There's only like a certain amount of us that can test. Our entire development team is probably realistically, for day in, day out, about 20 people. So we were all testing, sure, but we're being compared to Bethesda Game Studios, who had something like 150 QA testers for several months. That is impossible for us.
And the game's still broken. I mean, 150 QA testers. And the next gen update is an actual disaster. It's just being compared to Bethesda. I think like this is part of it, is that Bethesda Game Studios fans have a very high tolerance for this stuff, which is why like if this were a big mod for another type of game, then maybe people would be more upset at how difficult it's been to install and how it crashes and stuff. But with BGS fans, they're used to being abused, so they're fine. They're
to have. So I'm very happy in the quality it is. But yeah, you know, there will be things that they would have picked up that we unfortunately can't. So that's what we're solving right now.
Yeah, and it should be said as well, I know there are lots of jokes about the level of bugs that are even in the Bethesda releases when they come out. Maybe don't want to go too far down that road.
Well, we've been said that we are a Bethesda release, let's say. So our bugs are the same. So if we stand on that level, sure.
Yeah. And, I lost train of thought there. Bear with me. Do apologise.
No worries at all.
Yeah, 150 QA testers and a gun in the paid mod can't reload. Yeah, I mean, it really makes you wonder if they even tested it at all, or if they did test it and just didn't care to fix it. Both answers are not great. That's why, like, when we use the word unacceptable or inexcusable, people just throw words out and they don't really stop to think, what does that actually literally mean? And it means inexcusable. There is no excuse you could give me for charging $7 for a quest and then the reward is broken and you can't use it in the game. There is no excuse for that. There's nothing you can say. It's unacceptable. They should refund everybody who bought that and then some, and then give that quest away for free when it's working. That would at least be like, okay, you admit you did something wrong. But instead, when Maddie talks to Todd, he's like, yeah, we're looking at pricing and everything. Yeah, we're gonna figure out if that's the best way to do it. We thought it was a fun idea. And we hear feedback. We really do. We really, really do.
Shout out to the chess club.
And then Maddie's like, okay, love me, please.
Oh, what was I going to say? But yes, so, that is the point, really, isn't it? It does kind of highlight the scale of the project, because as you say, QA testing companies have whole departments of dozens, if not hundreds of people dedicated to this. And I'm guessing you were probably expecting to have some level of surprises after the release, just because
there's always surprises. Yeah. I think as well, it's like we've had people playing the game now for, I think, for like they're like 70 hours in. And like that was not our goal to create a game that's that long. The fact that they're playing it for this long. And as you can imagine, for a team our size, we couldn't sit there and play 70 hours or every day. There's not enough hours in the day. So it's just, yeah, it's one of those things where there were always going to be slight hiccups. It's unfortunate that some of them were at the start. We are fixing those, and we have fixed a lot of them. So we'll have a fix coming out for them soon. So yeah.
And actually, that's probably a good place to bookend talking about the...
That's the other good thing, that they partnered with GOG on this, because they can issue an update through GOG, is my understanding, and then that will update the mod. You don't have to do this weird like patchwork thing where, you know, you just try to manage it yourself and copy this file into this folder and rename this into that and go into the INI file and change that. Like, again, it would be so much easier if they just allowed them to put it on Steam, or if Bethesda's like officially sanctioned them or something. But
the sort of fixes and bugs and things, because you have got some stuff on the horizon, right? Some fixes
100%.
and updates. Do you just want to talk a little bit about what might expect from those?
Yeah, sure. So the immediate hotfix is the one that we next coming out. That one is basically to try and help with some of the crashes and the like. One of the biggest things that we basically had as a recommendation, we've got permission to use since the release. So we're now going to combine that in with the project. So that should help a lot of the stability. So that's more what the first hotfix is. The first patch, which will be coming just slightly after, not too long after, but that'll actually be adding in even more content. So just the nature of these releases, there's only a set amount of things that you get in after a certain time. And we mentioned it that we had issues during our delay video that due to some of the real world things that are going on that I don't really want to go into because everyone can guess, we did basically lose one of our scripters. And so there were things that were cut. This will be now filtering in through patches. So people will not just be getting fixes, they'll also be getting new content as well. So it's literally a bit of both. So it fixes the things that are broken, and then they also get like a new thing that they can do while they're going, oh, this now works. So it's good, I think.
Awesome. I'm sure lots of people are looking forward to that one. And probably a good point there, because I think I've noticed looking at the reviews on GOG, discussions on Reddit, I think even where people have had issues, they've been couched in goodwill, you know, people understanding it's a free project that you've all sort of donated time to. What has been the most kind of heartwarming aspect of the response for you?
Honestly, just the amount of messages we've got. Our inbox has been flooded with people just saying this is good, they've brought them back, because Bethesda haven't released anything to do with Fallout for a while. They keep updating Fallout 76, but if you don't enjoy an online version of that game, you're not going to play it. So for a single player game...
What a simple statement that the leadership of Bethesda seems wholly unwilling to say. It's just like, yeah, it's like Fallout 76. A lot of people don't like it and aren't going to play it. So they're just going to be waiting 20 years until the next Fallout game. That's why they're eating this up, because it's a fix. It's a little something. It's amazing. It's why it's the whole Fallout London thing. Again, if I had to describe it simply, I would just say it's refreshing, because these people are just able to say it's not even the quiet part out loud. It's just the obvious part out loud that everybody else pretends is not the case. You're a hater? Yes, I am. Yep. True. You got me. Caught me red-handed. Oh, baby.
Ours has come out, and it sort of bridged the gap between when their next thing will be.
I hate
so
how much
we've got
I
a
love
lot of
it.
people that have been commenting on that, and they've been saying that, and it's just very, very heartwarming to have this. Now, we know, like with anything online, that there will be negativity out there. Typically, for every 10 people that like it, there'll be that one person that yells that they really don't. And I've just told my team, like, just don't read that, because look at my inbox. It's just full of everyone that seems to really enjoy it. So, and I've noticed that a bit more online, is that the people that maybe don't enjoy it, or they've had issues installing it, they really want to sort of just yell to the crowd and be like, you shouldn't do this. Whereas the people that have really enjoyed it have been a lot more personable. So they've contacted me directly, or one of the team members directly, because they're like, thank you so much for doing this. And I'm not just like, thanks, like they've like sent almost like novellas of thank you so much. And that is so heartwarming for us. We've read all of them. It's great.
Yeah, I think responding to feedback, I just realized he's got a bunch of ammunition up here. That's funny. Are you allowed to do that in the UK? I know you guys have like guns outlawed and stuff, so maybe these are fake. I don't know. Anyway, I think like responding to feedback is always tricky, because positive feedback's nice. It makes you feel good, but it doesn't really tell you a lot, doesn't teach you a lot. It's the negative feedback and hopefully constructive criticism you can grow from and that you can learn from. I try to learn from the stuff that comes in on our stuff all the time, except for the people that are upset that I didn't like Stalker 2 at Summer Game Fest. I don't care what anyone says. I played it. You didn't. Suck it up. That being said, I do think it's important to look at negative feedback and try to appreciate what they're saying. But if somebody's just coming to you and screaming, it doesn't, like, it's not helpful. It's not helpful. And I think that's more what he's responding to. Because I've seen a couple comments, even on the video we did previously, where people were commenting that, well, it's almost impossible to install unless you know how to mod stuff. So therefore, nobody should be supporting this because it's totally unacceptable. It's like, okay, I can understand that. I just frankly disagree, because it's a free mod. And when it's a mod, there's an understanding that there's going to be added steps. Everybody would love it if it were as simple as pressing a button on Steam and then it downloads and you're good to go. But like, the world isn't necessarily exactly what you want it to be. So sometimes things are not going to be that easy. And with all of these things, like every grievance with games, with anything in life, it's on a spectrum. There are some things that upset you that are huge deal breakers. Other things that are just frankly not that big of a deal. So for example, one thing we were going to talk about later in the stream, Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster will no longer grant erotica points for taking photos of women. This is something I forgot the original game did, but basically in the original game, if Frank takes a photo of like Cheryl, the NPC, while she's like laying on the ground, you get 700 points for erotica points for taking a picture of a woman. Which is just kind of funny. I understand why they took that out. And like, obviously as somebody who loved the original game and kind of, you know, it's part of my like teen years is playing that a lot, you know, years after it dropped, you know, we played it at like sleepovers and stuff. It was one of our like late night games. We just loved it. So like, I would appreciate if you're going to do like a remaster or whatever of the game, I'd appreciate it if you kept the content of the game the same, even though it's a relic of its time. Sure, it's not PC anymore. You're making a remaster of the game. I'd appreciate if you just kept it the way it was. So I don't like this, but is it a big deal to me? No, it's a very little, like it's not going to change whether I check out the game when it drops, you know, the remaster when it drops. Now, if they changed it where it's like, okay, also, we're not going to do zombies anymore because zombies is an offensive term to people who work tough jobs and feel like zombies at the end of their workday. So to be the most sensitive, all of the zombies are going to be replaced with walking, not Teletubbies, because that would be offensive to Teletubbies. So instead, it's just going to be walking sticks. We're just going to have sticks with no bark, because we don't want the sticks to look overly threatening. They're just going to be smooth sticks that just walk towards you. And instead of biting you, we're not going to have them hit you because that might bring up triggering thoughts of when you were a child and maybe spanked. So instead, they're just going to nuzzle up against you. And that's how we're going to deal with the zombie problem. If I found out about that, I would not like it. And that would be a big deal, little deal, big deal. And I wouldn't get the game at that point. But it feels like nowadays, everything is so hypersensitive that people will make any little thing into the big thing. And I get frustrated by that. You know, this sounds like game of the year to me. Yeah. So I think with all of these things, when you have negative feedback towards something, or there's something you don't like the difficult install, or you don't like the trouble with crashes and stuff, there's some things which are big deals. And like, if they were charging for this, it would be a much bigger deal that it crashes constantly. But the fact that it's free and it's a mod, and they didn't get any support from Bethesda or anything, I'm more forgiving on those things. So do I like that it crashes constantly? No, but it's a little deal to me in the grand scheme of everything else. In the words of some people recently, in the context of what's happening, of the context of the world, it's not that big of a deal in the context. You know what I'm talking about.
Awesome. Yeah, that must be very validating. Because I guess there was always a lot of expectation, a lot of hype around the project. So there was a lot of people wanted it to succeed, I think, but still, even having those messages come through must feel really good, right?
Yeah, it's just great reading them. And as I said, we didn't really go into this for like pats on the back. We just wanted to create something that we found fun and that we enjoyed playing. And it's kind of like a bonus that other people are enjoying playing it as well. And the fact they're enjoying it so much and telling us about it, yeah, it does feel good. Obviously, it feels good.
It's always a good yardstick. Would you say, looking back, that you enjoyed making it overall? I know it must have been a roller coaster, but when you sit looking back over all the time you spent working on it, does it feel worth it, you know?
Well, yeah, 100%. Like, I'm not going to deny that there are low points where like everyone on the team is like stressed out or the like, especially when we're coming up towards release. But I definitely think it was one of the things that kept us sane during the lockdown period. Like behind me is all my knickknacks from travel. So I went from traveling to just being living in my room for 2 years, like a lot of people did. If I didn't channel my like focus into something, which we obviously focused it into this, I don't know what state I would have been when we came out. So it definitely kept us together. And one thing that I love the most, and this is going to sound very cliche, but like the sort of the family element of the team that we've grown, I absolutely adore all of them. And a lot of the people on the team They might have like anxiety, autism, or some sort of like special need, or like they just don't really fit in society as well as they could. They've definitely grown as a team and people amongst this. And that's my biggest thing. At the end of the day, like the mod is one thing, just how we've grown as people in this team working together and how they're now acting is that to me is worth weight in gold. If I have to go up to the pearly gates, that's my achievement right there. Like that.
Yeah, it's great. It's tremendous. And it's also, I think people don't give modding teams enough credit for something this big. Like you remember, what was the other mod that was pretty far along and then they got a cease and desist and had to shut it all down? And there's been lots of examples of that type of thing, though, where modders will work on something for ages and then they get shut down. And it's got to be stressful to be like, okay, we're going to pour months and months of our time into this. And at any moment, the parent company could come in and just tell us, nope, and you have to stop, you know? And it's got to be stressful, knowing that at any moment all your work could basically be for nothing because you just get shut down. The fact that they still pushed through and worked on it this long and then got it across the finish line is all the more impressive to me.
So yeah.
Awesome. That sounds like you've really got something out of it and made some friends for life, I imagine, as well. Awesome. Probably, as we spoke about it so much last time, just to touch on the whole relationship or lack of one with Bethesda. Has anything
Oh, this is the good one. I want to know this. Okay.
moved in that regard since last time? Have you had any contact from them or anything like that?
No, we haven't. The communication. Now, this is the thing. We don't expect anything from them. Again, we're just fans of the project and it is their IP. We are very much aware of that. But no, there hasn't been any communication, which is strange because we've now had communication with other people in the industry and what I guess what would be seen as their competitors. They've reached out to us and we've spoken to them, but Bethesda themselves have not spoken to us at all, no. And again, I will caveat this because this is one thing that was raised before, that people thought that we were entitled to try and have a conversation with them. No, absolutely not. I feel like there is a element of thanks towards when these things have happened before, that they have been like, oh, this has come out, go and support our wonderful team or whatever like that. This has been seen. Paradox is very known for doing that. They will just do like a little announcement and be like, hey, our fans have done this, go check that out. There's been nothing like that. And again, we don't expect it. It would have just been nice, I guess, is what I should have said last time when I was on. We don't really care if we get a head pat or not. We didn't do it for that. We did it for the fans, not for the company itself. But no, zero correspondence, especially since release.
Zero correspondence.
Literally zero.
Yeah.
Not if the community manager has said anything to us. So.
The fact that people, even individuals, like it's one thing if the corporate team reaches out, right? If it's one thing if the official Bethesda Game Studios Twitter page posts something, like that's obviously a company action. But the fact that not even a single person within Bethesda has reached out to them, that's gotta be a directive, right? Like I've worked at companies where we had official policies where it's like, you cannot post social media like this. Jacob in chat. No wonder it's so good. Bethesda's staying far away from it. That's why we figured it out. What if they know? They're like, if we get close to it, it's going to turn to crap. So let's just stay away. Oh, that'd be funny. They're like a leper and they're scared to get close because they know it's going to turn bad. That's funny. Oh, well, I you know what I need to do? I need to reach out to some of the Bethesda people I know and I need to ask them like, okay, hush, hush. Like not, of course, officially on the record, but like, can you tell me anonymously if there's been messaging not to acknowledge this? I've got to know. Because you would think one person at Bethesda who's worked on Fallout has tried this. There's no way nobody in their company has tried it. And so the fact that nobody has even taken to Twitter and said anything is weird, especially like somebody like Emil, who I'm pretty sure has me muted. I don't blame him. I haven't been nice to him in videos. He regularly tweets all sorts of stuff about Star Wars Outlaws, Midnight Suns. About Dredge. He'll tweet out anything he's playing. You really think he's not trying Fallout London unless they like unless they like are actually so weirded out that they're not going to talk about it and they don't want to play it because they have some weird policy where they're like, we don't want to play that because we don't want it to affect our vision for our next game. Again, it's freaking weird. Maybe that's the next main channel video. Is just Bethesda's being weird. That's it. All right, Jimmy, they're playing Concord. That's what it is.
Interesting. I'm glad you got to address that point about entitlement as well. I read some of the comments last time. I thought it was perhaps a little bit unfair. But
that and how white my teeth were. Your readers seem to just love, like, they're real, they're not veneers. I just wanted to clarify that. That was the biggest thing I've read in your comment.
I did. Credit to you and your dental routine, I guess. It's very, very impressive. But yeah, now you mention it, impressive. Yeah, well done. Wasn't on my topics list, but we'll go there anyway. It's fine.
I just needed to cover that.
Hey, this is your platform. Go for it. And so, I guess really just to round out, I suppose there's probably an end point for Fallout London. I guess maybe you haven't given much thought to when that might be, but if you have any idea, please do tell us. And again, I guess we touched on it a little bit last time, but probably good to ask again. What are you going to do next?
So Fallout London will continue until we basically have all the content which we had to cut for the release. So we have another ending, which is called the wildcard ending. Basically, that will come out in one of the future patches. We're aiming for like some small ones for like stability and things like that, but ultimately there will be a larger patch that basically puts in basically everything that we didn't get in for the original release, and then that will be sort of when we sort of close up shop for Fallout London. That's not going to happen soon. We can see ourselves doing that towards until at least at the end of the year, but there will obviously be a point where we're like, that is now done. Because again, as much as I love the fact that it is a free project, we can offer this thing to free for all the community, free doesn't pay our bills. What has been great for us is that a lot of people who have really enjoyed it have donated to us. And what we are doing with that is we are channeling that into Team Folon, which is obviously what we're going to be moving into. And then we should hopefully launch our own indie games company, which will allow us completely to be able to come up with our own ideas, create our own game, and just really work with the community without having to even like speak to anyone above us, such as like Bethesda or anything like that. It'll be completely our own thing, and we can create a game that we want to, that we think that the community will enjoy. And I think Fallout London has been a great springboard for that, because we've worked with people now, we know what the community seems to like, and we've got a great platform where we can just talk to them. We're actually going to be doing a developer stream later today, and like people are going to have so many questions, and all of that we write down because that we can take into our own future company. So that I'm really looking forward to.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you got it all mapped out, Dean. I think that
sounds like it. I don't.
But... you did it. You did a good job of sounding like you know you did. That's half the battle, isn't it? With life. Awesome. Well, Dean, I think that's everything from me. Unless there's anything you wanted to add, but felt pretty expansive.
Honestly, just a huge thanks to the community. As I said, we did this for you guys. We didn't do it for any ulterior reason. We really just did it for the fans, and I'm just glad that you guys seem to be enjoying it. We'll get those things fixed for you so that everyone can play it and make it as easy as we can. But yeah, just thank you everyone for who's downloading it and supporting us. It means a lot to us. I'm just glad we can do this for you guys.
Shout out Team Folon. It's awesome. It's again, just simply refreshing. I am going to reach out to some Bethesda people I know. I'm really curious if they've told people in the company that they can't talk about this. And that's not to say that like there's not a legitimate reason why they can't talk about it. It very well might be that they're looking at it and they're like, we could talk to them and we could acknowledge it. And maybe it is the case that then their trademark lawyers would have to go and file cease and desists and stuff. And they're like, we just can't sign a variance or anything unless we're going to get something for it. Maybe that's another policy they have. I'd be like, well, make an exception, dumbass, but whatever. Maybe that's it. In which case they're like, we could put it on the Creation Club store for $10 and they get money for it. We get some kickback for it. It's a win-win, except for the players who now have to pay for what would have been a free mod. Maybe they do something like that. Maybe they just decided, you know what, that's just not worth the trouble or the headache, because then we're enabling. I'm sure Todd probably views it as like a coup against the company. I don't know. I can't come up with a solution to this that holds up under a little bit of scrutiny. Because even I think it was Danny O'Dwyer, he was saying the reason they're not acknowledging it is probably because trademark lawyers would have to get involved if they acknowledged it. But even that, I don't think is the case, because as Dean Carter has alluded to in this interview, like other companies like Paradox have acknowledged DLCs and haven't had to sue everybody involved. Like they haven't had problems with it. They just say, hey, good job on that, guys, and move on. So it's got to be some company decision. And maybe it's not even Todd. Maybe it's Phil. Maybe Phil is like, don't acknowledge it. It's really cool. It's awesome, but whatever. If it's free, there's no issue. I'm not sure if that's the case though, because even that mod for like Pal World that had Pokemon stuff, that was technically trademark infringement and copyright infringement, which using the Fallout license for a mod would also be copyright infringement or trademark infringement. So I don't know. There's lots of different ways to do it, but I think at the end of the day, like Jake says in chat, it's up to the IP holder. And even if, you know, as I've alluded to previously, in the US, if there's an infringement on your trademark, you are obligated to enforce it and to hold it, and to shut down, I think, people who are stepping on it. But there's such a thing as variances. Like you can make an exception where you sign a piece of paper saying you guys have permission to use this. It's fine. Just like when you hire a company to go and make merch for you and put your logo on t-shirts, you give that company permission to use your logo to produce a product that, granted, you'll get a kickback from when it sells, but you're licensing your trademark to them. You're licensing an IP that you own to them. They could license it here and then just not get paid for it. I know that might be a crazy idea for Bethesda to not make money off of every single little thing associated with Fallout, but that's an option that they just seemingly are incapable of considering. So even that excuse doesn't seem to hold up under basic scrutiny. So I don't know. I'll reach out to some Bethesda people and see if I can find anything, and maybe we get an interesting scoop. I'd be intrigued. Maybe they're just like, nope, we just honestly haven't played it. We hate Fallout. That's why we aren't making one for another 10 years. Maybe that's what they say. Or maybe they come back and they say, yeah, no, we've been told by managers we can't talk about it. Don't know why. I don't know. But it would be really interesting to know what's going on. Wouldn't you think? Color me intrigued. He took my thing.